Call the meeting to order. TJ, will you please call the roll?
Mrs. Best.
Present.
Mrs. Davis.
Present.
Mrs. Epling Skinner is absent. Ms. Harless.
Present.
And Mrs. Hudson is absent.
Okay, thank you for joining us for our November 24th, I have to look at my watch, Board of Education meeting. My name is Kelly Davis. I am this year's Board of Education President. To my left is Treasurer TJ Cusick. To my right is Superintendent Dr. Trent Bowers, Board Member Stephanie Harless, and Board Member Jennifer Best. If you are able, please stand and join us for the Pledge of Allegiance.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. May I please have a motion to approve the agenda for tonight's meeting?
So moved. Second.
It's been moved and seconded. Are there any questions or additions, corrections? TJ, will you please call for the vote?
Mrs. Best.
Yes.
Mrs. Davis.
Yes,
Ms. Harless.
Yes.
motion carries. Doesn't look like we have any visitor comments, so I'm going to move on to information, proposals, and announcements. Information and proposals, actually. And I'm going to turn it over to the Policy Committee, which is Stephanie Harless.
Thank you. I have received no feedback and have made no changes, or I don't have any feedback either since our last session. So if we don't have anything, we're good.
Okay. No questions? Okay. I haven't heard anything either, gotten any information. So that will come up later in our meeting for the second reading of our new policies. Moving on to Superintendent's report, Dr. Bowers.
Yes, thank you. So the mission of Worthington Schools is to empower a community of learners who will change the world, even on a 2-day school week. We do that through our 4 vision statements, and so for this report, we have a statement under each area. So our first vision statements will engage each student with diverse opportunities to maximize every student's potential. So just recently, the Ohio Department of Education and Workforce has released the 2025 Ohio Special Education Annual Rating. We're proud to announce that Worthington Schools received a rating of meets requirements. And while that doesn't sound super exciting, that is the highest rating a district can earn. The 2025 special education ratings are based on data from the 23-24 school year and are determined using indicators established under IDEA. These indicators assess district performance in areas such as compliance, graduation outcomes, evaluation timelines, and services provided in the least restrictive environment. So we want to say a thank you to our special education department and all of our teachers and staff members that make that happen. Our second vision statements will provide a safe environment where every student can grow intellectually, emotionally, socially, and physically. At our last board meeting a week and a half ago, we had a construction presentation. We're proud to say that students at Thomas Worthington High School are now actively using the west entrance, the new student commons, the media center, counselor, and administrative offices. These new spaces provide natural light, student space to move around and collaborate with peers, and we're just excited to be into these new spaces. Construction continues on music, the auditorium, and art spaces, all to open later this spring. Our third vision statements will provide consistent communication and promote dialogue with our community. You've likely seen that there were a number of property tax bills passed last week, and those made the headlines, but we want to point out that the Ohio legislature also passed a bill to standardize kindergarten admissions statewide. Our current policy allows admission to kindergarten for students who turn 5 by September 30th. The new law, statewide, assuming that the governor signs it in the next 10 days, will be that you must turn 5 by the first day of school. For us in Worthington next year, that's August 19th. So many kindergarten teachers will appreciate this as they'll serve slightly older students. The consistency statewide is probably a good thing, as currently many surrounding districts have different dates, and this is really confusing for families. But on the downside, at least in transition, almost 10% of the families that may have been planning on sending their children to kindergarten in Worthington next year won't be eligible. So as soon as the governor signs this, we'll make sure it's communicated to the Welcome Center and to the community. We may even have some families who've already completed registration that we'll need to revisit. Our fourth vision statement is that we will be responsible and transparent with our community resources. Just a reminder that our schools are closed this week, Wednesday through Friday, for the Thanksgiving holiday. We'll be back in school on Monday, December 1st. We hope that all students and staff have a great holiday. President Davis, that's my report.
Thank you, Dr. Bowers. I can't believe it's already almost December. Thank you for that.
Can I ask a quick question?
Absolutely.
So I know that we have had in Worthington exemptions for students that have, superior academic or cognitive, whatever, like that can test out. Is that accounted for in the state bill, or does that also eliminate that?
So I don't think, so there is an early admissions process that a family can apply for. I don't think that's accounted for. I don't think there's any change. Well, I don't know if I'm saying that right. I don't believe there's a change to the early admissions process should a student want to go through that, or a family want to go through that process.
Okay, thanks.
No, that was a good question. Thank you. TJ Cusick, Treasurer's Report, please.
Thank you. Quickly, our insurance committee met for its quarterly meeting this week. As this group knows, we have been having a year where claims have exceeded expectations, which led back in the fall to increase deductibles, implement co-insurance, and results in an increase in premium for 2026. Unfortunately, the claims data that was presented this meeting through October continued that trend where our expenses are running about 110% of our revenue, which you want that to be in the high 90s. So we are spending more than we're taking in. But a lot of that has to do with very high cost claimants. We have 9 very high cost claimants. In a normal year, we'd expect to have around 3. So we're hopeful that some of this is just bad luck and will turn its course next year, but we'll see. As Dr. Bowers mentioned, the 4 property tax bills that were passed, I don't want to go too deep here, but I do want to say for Worthington, in terms of our projections and our 5-year forecast, the cap on inside millage essentially means we'll get less growth that I had forecasted in revenue. And, philosophically, capping unvoted increases does make some sense, but as we know, levies are very hard to pass. And this essentially will mean that we'll have to add about $500,000 to what we're going to have to ask voters that we were planning on in 28. But on a bright note, Senator Lou Blessing, who's been an outspoken critic of many of his own party's reforms in this area, flipped and voted for House Bill 186 because of the expansion of the owner-occupied credit. And this is where it gets incredibly confusing. But I will just say that in Ohio, there's 2 credits that residential properties can get. One is a 10% credit on all residential property, and then one is a 2.5% additional credit if you own and reside in that property. And what the state has basically said is we want to provide credits to people who own and live in that property, not who invest in property. And so they're kind of shifting who gets the credit from the investor to the resident. So that, I think, is a good thing, and what Senator Blessing had indicated made him flip his vote. So we should see some benefit here in Worthington in terms of homeowners. And then lastly, a reminder that while financially there may be doom and gloom on the horizon, I will have been here 20 years this spring. And I would say it is truly one of the best times to be a student in Worthington schools in terms of our student opportunities, our supports we give our students, and currently the condition of our facilities, I would say, is an all-time high. And we should be very thankful for our community support over those past 20 years. President Davis.
Thank you, TJ. I appreciate the bright note at the end. And just, positive information. I mean, we need to know the information that is going to be challenging for our district, but it's also important to keep in mind the things that are happening that are good, that we can advocate for and not always just against. So I appreciate that. All right, moving on. Oh, yes, absolutely.
I'm full of questions today.
No, you're fine.
On the inside millage cap, if that passes and it is capped, would taxpayers see some relief on that side so that when we come back for the additional $500,000, it nets somewhere zero, or
Correct. So
Okay.
if, we go through reappraisal in 2026 again, and normally the 4.5 mils, so granted, keep in mind, this is only about 10% of your total property tax bill, but that would have grown with reappraisal. And so I'm projecting a reappraisal of about 10% in this next coming, it may be very well may be higher than that again. But, so normally that part of your tax bill would have grown, whatever reappraisal is 10%. Now it's going to be capped at what they're calling this GDP deflator, which in and of itself is a little odd, but
Okay.
say it's about 3%. They would have had to pay 10% more. Now they're only going to cap it at 3% more.
Okay.
But that essentially means that what we have to ask for in voted
Right.
mills replaces that difference so
Right.
that it's net to the taxpayer the same as we would have been. We just have to, they have
Ask
to vote for it.
Yeah, okay. Thank you.
No, that was a helpful question too. I appreciate that because, okay, anyway. Moving on to board reports and announcements. Stephanie, do you have anything?
So I have a fair amount of stuff from OSBA. I don't know if we want to wait until we have the whole group here for that. But maybe I do have a couple things, if I can go back to my notes, that might be more timely because they were around. I met Senator Blessing, and I said, I talked to him after, and I said, we talk about you all the time. But I want to get my notes open. Do you have anything? And then come back to me so I can find.
Yes. Well, I will be very quick. But
Okay, that's
to
fine.
give you enough time, I was at the insurance committee meeting, so thank you, TJ, for kind of summarizing that. Never good to hear about our costs exceeding income, but we know that's the way we've been going with that. So appreciate the update on that. And then later in the agenda is the library trustee for 2026. And her name's on the agenda. Emma Mulvaney, you may have seen her name before because we selected her, we approved her last year as a replacement for someone that had left the board. We had two names last year. One was the full term, and then one was the replacement, which was Emma. And they decided to recommend her for this full term. She lives in the Northwest Library area, so they're happy to have someone kind of from that area on their board and continue on her board. So that vote will come up a little later this evening. And that's
Okay.
all I have.
I found him.
Okay.
I just have one question. So you said that they changed the term for that from 7 years to 4.
To 4.
So does everyone start that 4 years, or is it the person, like now, once they
Like,
have a new trustee, that new trustee will start with 4?
it's my understanding that she will start with 4.
Okay. I
That
just
they
was
won't
wondering.
cut back on the people that are already there.
Okay.
We'll get them out of sequence probably.
Yeah.
Okay. I was just curious. Thank you for doing that.
Okay. So I sat in on a legislative update, but it was more of a panel discussion than actually legislative update on the bills coming through. So Senator Blessing was there, Rep. Isaacson, and Senator Kent Smith was there for a while, and then he had to run. So just briefly, I think a lot of the stuff that we have talked about before around if we give property tax relief, how do we get funding for schools elsewhere, right? And so kind of, TJ, you've talked about like where Ohio ranks in the different types of taxation nationally. Blessing did a 10-state comparison, so all of the Great Lakes state plus Kentucky and West Virginia. And I thought it was interesting. So we're 4th in sales tax, 2nd highest in property tax, and then 10th in income tax, right? And so that mix then nets us in being very property tax reliant, but income tax decreases disproportionately, help the wealthy, right? So there is some inequity, not just in the funding portion, but there's inequity in how we are potentially taxing our citizens. So if we think about holistic tax reform, it can't come in just property taxes, it has to come somewhere else. And we talked too about what does it look like if we can't have equitable funding until the state pays us their quote unquote fair share, and we can debate what that looks like, but how does that happen, right? Because if we go through the budget process every year, it becomes this big debate, and it's unpredictable. And so our income is unpredictable. And so blessing throughout there that we may need to, not we, but we as Ohio, contemplate some sort of constitutional amendment that codifies what school funding looks like and what that fair school funding equation is, I guess, which that is the first time that I'd heard that. So I thought that was kind of interesting, and would, if done the right way, certainly provide a level of predictability that we don't have today. No one on the panel thought that we would see many more overrides on House Bill 96, even though it's open for 2 more years, simply because we're just going to see bills come through. I mean, we're seeing that on the property tax side and things like that. So our attention is less on the House Bill 96 than the other things. They talked about how we as school board members can be good partners together and also good partners with our legislators. And Isaacson talked a lot about building coalition and reaching out to other members in red districts, or if you're in a red district, reaching out to a blue district, but also having a really good mix of suburban, urban, and rural talking points, so that when you go and you advocate for school funding or you advocate for certain things, that you're advocating as a bipartisan coalition, because that's the most effective thing that they've seen. So, I mean, it makes sense, but it was good to hear and interesting to hear. Let me see if there's anything else. It really was a really good panel. I think that was, Isaacson talked a little bit about transportation too, and about how that was something that we know is an issue, but we've never really addressed. And, he said specifically, like if you look at rural districts and their ability to transport under the current laws, and then urban districts like Columbus where they have to transport students. So we talked a lot about that. I know that is not as big an issue for us, but it is sometimes an issue. And also if we think about that coalition building, what is important to us that we can talk to other districts about, and then transversely they can talk about that sort of thing. So those were the highlights. I'll save my other sessions for when everybody's back. But
Thank you. I didn't know if you had something else. Okay. No, that's helpful. So when you talk about coalitions, you're talking about bringing these groups together. Did they talk about, because I just, from going through the state budget process, realizing, you think of public education, but different changes to legislation impact different districts differently.
yeah.
And so talking about like how to bring that together, did they touch on that? Like
Sort of.
what they did?
I don't think they were necessarily advocating for, we go and speak about something that, that is outside of our comfort zone.
Mm-hmm.
But, they talked about this idea that what we do today in education defines who Ohio is in 2050. Mm-hmm. And so certainly while we have to focus on Worthington because that's our job, we also have to think collectively what that means and what that's going to do for our students long term.
Mm-hmm.
And so, I think part of it is just understanding what impacts other districts and how that impacts them, and being in a space where we have those connections, so we can bounce ideas off of each other, and we can understand what does this do for your district? This is what happens in my district. Those sorts of things. Mm-hmm. And then I think it's always helpful when we can, because we've talked about this here, when we can take turns being the voice, because it can't always be the same voice over and over and over again. It becomes less impactful.
Right. Yeah. Okay. That's helpful. I like that idea. I was only, I don't know what's going on today. I was only able to go to OSBA for one day, so I'll talk about that session that I went to. Stephanie and I went to that together at the next meeting. I also went to PTAC last week, and they had some good, they always have such good conversations in that group, and I think they learn from one another when you talk about like collaboration and seeing what other schools are needing, and how each other can help each other. They had a lot of conversations about that, like how different PTAs can help each other. If there's an excess here or a skill here or an idea here that we can all share across the board. So I appreciate that they had those conversations. They did talk about Magic School, so I'm going to say to Angie that a lot of the people at the table were very interested in maybe having a presentation about Magic School and understanding it a little bit better and how it's utilized within the district. So Angie gave a report while we were there. And so I think they just were looking to have a little bit more information. So maybe reach out to Lindsay and see if she can let you know what she needs from that. They talked about reflections that are happening in the elementary school levels and just that they're extending the deadline. I didn't write the deadline down, but I think it's in December. So they're looking to do that. So I did that, and then went to the community engagement event it was the day after our meeting last time, and just thank you, Toya, and your team for putting that together. There were a lot of great organizations and services that were here, things that I knew about that I didn't even know that we had partnerships like that within our district. And the sessions seemed to be very well received, that families were able to go to. It's very kid-friendly, so I thought that was really great. Obviously, Ms. Toya Reed's is always a popular spot to be in, but even the community agencies that were here and the organizations that were here were very receptive to students being there too and their families. And so it was a very great program. I look forward to seeing it again next year. So that's all I have for
I'm
that.
glad you brought that up. That was a really great event. And I will just add, in addition to all of that great stuff, it was exciting to see Ben Rule in the lobby with his iPad ready to have somebody translate for families that needed that support too. So the event was really designed to be accessible to everybody. So that was wonderful.
Yeah, it was great. Okay, moving on to actions recommended by the treasurer, routine business, TJ.
Thank you. I'd like to recommend that the Board of Education approve the minutes from the November 12th meeting as presented in enclosure E1, please.
So moved.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. Are there any questions or comments? Okay, TJ, will you please call for the vote?
Mrs. Davis.
Yes,
Ms. Harless.
Yes.
Mrs. Best.
Yes.
motion carries. Moving on to the personnel consent agenda, Dr. Bowers.
Yes, thank you. I'd like to recommend that the Board of Education approve the consent agenda. That's items F2 through F8 on your agenda. F2 through F8, please.
So moved. Second.
It's been moved and seconded. Are there any questions or comments? TJ, will you please call for the vote?
Ms. Harless.
Yes.
Mrs. Best.
Yes.
Mrs. Davis.
Yes, motion carries. Actions recommended by the superintendent, new business, Dr. Bowers.
Yes, thank you. I'd like to recommend that the Board of Education approve item G1. Item G1 is the acceptance of the donations that are listed on your agenda. G1, please.
So moved.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. Any questions or comments? TJ, will you please call for the vote?
Mrs. Best.
Yes.
Mrs. Davis.
Yes,
Ms. Harless.
Yes.
motion carries. Okay, may I please have a motion to approve the appointment of Emma Mulvaney to the Worthington Public Library Board of Trustees to begin January 1st, 2026 and expire December 31st, 2029.
So moved.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. Anything additional that we need to discuss? TJ, will you please call for the vote?
Mrs. Davis.
Yes,
Ms. Harless.
Yes.
Mrs. Best.
Yes.
motion carries.
I
Congratulations,
do have one
Emma.
question about that. TJ, will you contact the library tomorrow and
We
tell
will.
them that we approved?
We
Emma,
will.
thank you.
Yay. Now may I please have a motion to approve the policy updates recommended by Neola as presented for a first reading at the November 12th, 2025 regular board meeting.
So moved.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. We discussed before. TJ, will you please call for the vote?
Ms. Harless.
Yes.
Mrs. Best.
Yes.
Mrs. Davis.
Yes, motion carries. Are there any requests, questions, or concerns from the board? All right. Calendar, our final meeting of 2025 is Monday, December 8th, so 2 weeks from this evening here in this room. where we will have a presentation by the Worthington Education Foundation grant. So that's exciting to see that. And then our first meeting of 2026 will be Monday, January 5th. That is the first Monday in January. So just to be clear about that, we will have our organizational meeting at 6 o'clock, and we will move into our regular meeting at 6:30 here at the WEC. May I please have a motion to adjourn?
So moved. Second.
TJ, will you please call for the vote?
Mrs. Best,
Yes.
Mrs. Davis,
Yes,
Ms. Harless.
Yes.
motion carries. Thank you, guys. Have a good evening.